The purpose of this video is to explore the most significant challenges impacting Medicaid enterprise system transformation work. The video builds upon the challenges commonly present in IT delivery models in general and the challenges present in our Medicaid organizations. To recap the two preceding videos very briefly, we've defined the following elements of the process. We have the current state environment and the outcomes and impacts currently being achieved by the organization. When a solution or idea is identified that is believed to improve the current state, we launch an improvement project with the solution idea as the scope. During the project, we perform activities to complete the scope, which include the delivery of outputs. These activities and outputs hopefully result in the improvement of the organization's outcomes and impacts, at which point these become the current outcomes and impacts, and the process repeats with the next scoped solution idea. Underlying everything we do, we must remain compliant with governance, regulatory, and compliance items. Across this lifecycle, we've articulated 5 primary challenges so far. That we aren't well positioned to generate good scope ideas that will truly improve outcomes, that we don't clearly express our desired outcomes or measure them to find out if our solution ideas are improving outcomes or not, and our organizational and existing technology environment prevent us from implementing scope quickly, making it take way too long to find out if a scope idea fails to achieve desired outcomes. When we left off from the last video, we were at the point in which we acknowledged the need to replace our aging technology with something modern. This brings us to the lead time challenges associated with Medicaid enterprise systems modernization. Let's start by exploring the governing constructs states must navigate to move from their current state technology to modern future state technology. This includes 4 primary constructs. There's MITA, the Medicaid Information Technology Architecture, published by CMS, which includes process guidance to help states assess the current state and identify areas of improvement. MITA also targets goals of standardization across states to incentivize reuse and interoperability between different state IT investments. There are APDs, or Advanced Planning Documents, which we must use to request federal match funding from CMS before launching work. There's procurement, the process by which we engage vendors and contractors to perform work. State and federal procurement laws and policies define how we must acquire software and services in a fair and unbiased manner. And lastly, certification. The process by which CMS ensures that we have met their requirements, which allows us to receive higher federal financial participation to support ongoing operations once in production. The process states use to navigate these constructs includes the following. States start by drafting a planning APD to request funding to do planning. This includes ideas states propose for modernizing. The planning APD must be approved by CMS before federal funding can be allocated to planning activities. If the state requires federal services for planning, a procurement process is also needed to secure the planning vendor, which is optional or could take place in parallel with planning APD approval. Vendor procurements and contracts must also be approved by CMS. Next, the real planning begins, which can include but may not be limited to creating MITA documentation, current state assessments, business process redesigns, future state architecture planning, road mapping, procurement activities to secure an implementation vendor, and development of an implementation APD requesting funding for the work. CMS approval is needed again before implementation work can commence. Then implementation activities can start, which are commonly referred to as DDI for design, development, and implementation. The certification framework from CMS provides guidance for activities like status reporting, testing, and security during this phase. CMS is engaged throughout the process through gate reviews to ensure progress is occurring based on the published plan. For states to continue to receive enhanced funding, they must perform an operational readiness review before releasing the idea to users and a final certification review 6 months later. As you can imagine, given all of these steps, states typically measure the lead time of modernization ideas, the time from idea conception until solution implementation, in years or decades. A multi-year delay between conceiving a solution and validating its outcomes is objectively too long. Even if we assume every idea was perfect when it entered this process, we know the world is moving too fast for this to work. Technology is currently changing at a rate much faster than this process supports. Rapid developments in large language models, artificial intelligence, and machine learning alone continue to disrupt how we interact with products and solutions. In addition to the rapid changes in technology, organizations are constantly evolving. People move to new jobs, different legislatures and governors are elected, pandemics happen. Change is inevitable and can invalidate previously selected solutions and create misalignment where alignment once existed. From an acquisition standpoint, most state procurement laws require the competitively sourced rebid of software products and services every 10 years. Given this life cycle, states often must start procuring the next solution as soon as they've finished the last in order to remain compliant. This process is often in flight concurrently for several major IT systems. And critically, the cost of inaction continues to escalate. Every year spent in this cycle is another year in which members, providers, and staff must struggle with outdated processes and technology. If our goal is to deliver outcomes to increase impact for our citizens, this approach does not seem likely to achieve this result. Let's take a look at the 5 challenges we've identified so far, and how our current governance structures address these challenges. The 4 governing constructs we've listed, MITA, APDs, procurement, and certification, have historically focused mostly on the ideas, or scope challenge, providing guidance to states to help develop plans for modernization, then solidifying those ideas into funding and procurement vehicles, and managing the delivery of those ideas in accordance with a predefined plan. MITA also acknowledges the need to understand current state architecture in order to identify better ideas for modernization. Lastly, the recently published Streamlined Modular Certification launched a focus on measuring outcomes rather than outputs, a major shift to address the outcomes challenge. Unfortunately, states have struggled to transition to an outcomes focus, and a universal list of Medicaid outcomes to measure is not available to states. Additionally, the CMS outcomes published for certification are worded as system requirements rather than program outcomes. This analysis gives us insight into potential gaps in our current approach for addressing our key challenges. We observe a common instinct to focus on scope, to try to get it right from the beginning. However, we know from experience that we can work to improve the ideas entering this improvement engine, but we are unable to eliminate the possibility of prioritizing scope that won't achieve our desired outcomes in our unique environment. We also know that even if we're measuring our outcomes, we won't have a true assessment of whether a scope idea improves them until we've delivered it. Additionally, having a really good plan provides little value if nothing is delivered for years. Unfortunately, the more we focus on getting to the right answer up front, the longer our lead times become. It seems clear that a better strategy for addressing these challenges would be to place more attention on reducing lead times, better navigating the current state culture and technical environments, and defining clear outcomes. To put it another way, the final challenge brought to light through this analysis is our human nature to design the best solutions in advance, leaving critical issues unaddressed. A fundamentally better strategy is needed, which we believe departs from traditional methods. As mentioned in the beginning of the first video, our proposed strategy contains 3 main elements: a diagnosis, guiding approach tenets, and an action plan. These 3 videos summarized our diagnosis of the challenges at the highest level. We will continue to perform diagnosis work at lower levels, for example, exploring enterprise architecture challenges, procurement challenges, funding challenges, etc. We are also building our guiding approach tenets for addressing these challenges, and will describe these in the next video. Stay tuned.